Steel Chips and Payback. Please subscribe if you enjoy stories like these. Introduction. I never thought of myself as the kind of guy who plotted revenge. Most days, I just wanted to clock in, let the screw machines sing their steal him, and clock out again. The rhythm of the shop was enough for me. The hiss of coolant, the bite of carbide into steel, the smell of oil that clung to my clothes long after I left. It was a hard life, but it was honest. But honesty doesn't mean much when your foreman treats you like scrap. The first insults. Frank was his name. He strutted through the shop like he owned it, even though everyone knew he was just another cog in the corporate machine. He barked orders, cut corners, and took credit for work he didn't do. Worst of all, he had a way of humiliating people in front of the crew. The first time he singled me out, I let it slide. "Kevin," he said, "you run that machine like you're half asleep. Maybe you should stick to sweeping floors." The guys laughed, not because they thought it was funny, but because laughing was safer than silence. I swallowed my pride and kept working. But pride has a way of piling up, like chips under the lathe. The line crossed. Weeks went by, and Frank kept at it. He'd nitpick my setups, accuse me of wasting material, even dock me an hour once because I didn't log a tool change the way he wanted. And then came the day he crossed the line. It was a Friday, end of shift, and I was cleaning up my station. Frank walked over, smirking, and held up one of my finished parts, a precision screw, threads cut clean, tolerances tight. "Looks good," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Too bad it's useless. You set the wrong pitch. Whole batch is scrap." I froze. I knew I hadn't set the wrong pitch. But Frank wasn't interested in truth. He was interested in making me look small. He tossed the part back onto the bench like it was garbage. That was the moment I decided revenge wasn't just an option, it was a necessity. The plan. Revenge in a machine shop isn't about fists or shouting. It's about precision. It's about patience. I started small. I watched Frank's routines, the way he checked parts, the way he strutted around with his clipboard. He wasn't careful. He pretended to be, but he wasn't. So I gave him appearances. The next week, I set up a run on one of the older screw machines. I adjusted the feed just enough to make the first few parts look perfect, but the threads were off by a hair, something you wouldn't catch unless you measured twice. Frank didn't measure twice. He signed off the batch, bragged about how he kept the shop running tight, and sent them out. 2 days later, the customer called. The parts didn't fit. Frank got chewed out by upper management. His reputation took a hit. And I wasn't done. The build-up. I started leaving little traps. A tool left slightly loose, a gauge calibrated just off, a coolant line kinked so the machine overheated. Nothing dangerous, just enough to cause headaches. Every time, Frank signed off without catching it. Every time, the mistakes came back to bite him. The crew noticed. They didn't say anything, but I saw the way they smirked when Frank got chewed out again. I saw the way they started looking at me differently. Not as the guy who got humiliated, but as the guy who was quietly turning the tables. The breaking point. The real revenge came on a Monday morning. Frank was in rare form, barking orders, slamming clipboards, acting like the king of steel. He came over to my station, looked at my setup, and shook his head. "You'll never get this right," he said. I smiled. "Maybe you're right," I said. What he didn't know was that I'd already set up the machine to run a batch of parts with a deliberate flaw. One so subtle, it would pass his lazy inspection, but fail spectacularly in the field. Frank signed off the batch without a second glance. 2 weeks later, the customer rejected the shipment. Thousands of dollars lost. Management was furious. And this time, they didn't blame the crew. They blamed Frank. He was demoted, stripped of his authority. The clipboard was taken from his hands. The aftermath. Frank still works in the shop, but he doesn't strut anymore. He doesn't bark orders. He keeps his head down, same as the rest of us. Sometimes I catch him looking at me, like he knows what happened, like he knows I was the one who set the traps. But he never says a word. And me? I don't gloat. I don't brag. I just let the machines sing their steal hymn, coolant mist rising like incense, chips piling up like offerings. Because in the end, revenge isn't about making someone suffer. It's about reclaiming your pride. It's about proving that even in a shop full of noise and oil and steel, respect matters. And if you don't give it, you'll lose it.